Think about what you did this morning. You woke up, and without thinking about it, you opened your eyes. The room came into focus. You read something. Maybe you looked out a window. Something as ordinary as a passing car, or the light coming through the curtains, registered clearly. Now think about what it would mean to lose that, slowly, gradually, not all at once, just a quiet, steady dimming, words getting harder to read, faces becoming less distinct, colors losing their sharpness, the independence that comes from being able to drive, to read, to recognize the faces of the people you love, slowly narrowing. Here is something most people don't know. Age-related vision loss is not simply a mechanical failure of the eye. It is in large part a nutritional story. The retina, the light-sensitive layer at the back of your eye, has the highest metabolic demand of any tissue in the human body. It burns through antioxidants faster than almost anywhere else, and after 60, the body's ability to deliver those protective nutrients to the eye begins to decline. What you eat specifically, whether certain key compounds are present in your diet regularly, has a direct documented effect on how quickly that decline happens. My name is Dr. William Parker. I have spent 21 years specializing in senior health, and today I am going to walk you through 7 fruits that nutritional research has identified as among the most protective for aging eyes. Some of these you know, some will genuinely surprise you. And the 7th one, which most people have never thought of as an eye health food, has some of the strongest data in this entire field. Stay with me through all 7. This video was built so that each fruit builds on the last. And I want to be clear from the start, this is not a replacement for regular eye care or medical treatment. It is an addition to it. What you eat is one of the most powerful tools you have, and it is one that most people are not using fully. If this channel is new to you, subscribe now. This is what we do here. Calm, science-based guidance for adults who want practical answers about how to protect their health. Let's begin. Before I give you the 7 fruits, I need to give you one framework. Because without it, you'll hear the list and think these are just healthy foods. They're not only that, they are delivering specific compounds to a specific tissue that is under specific threat, and understanding that threat changes how you think about every fruit on this list. I call this framework the retinal oxidation cycle, and once you understand it, the science behind these fruits becomes immediately clear. 3 things change about your eye's ability to protect itself after 60. 3 specific things. First, the macula, the small central region of the retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision, accumulates decades of oxidative damage from light exposure. Every time light enters the eye, it triggers a chemical reaction in the retinal tissue. In a younger eye, the antioxidants available to neutralize that reaction are abundant. After 60, those reserves thin, the oxidative stress accumulates, the tissue that produces your sharpest vision begins to show wear. Second, blood flow to the retina diminishes. The tiny blood vessels that deliver oxygen and nutrients to the back of the eye become less efficient with age, affected by the same cardiovascular changes that affect circulation throughout the body. A retina that is receiving less blood is receiving less of the nutrients it needs to repair itself overnight when most of the eye's restorative activity occurs. Third, and this is the one most people never hear about, a process called glycation silently damages the lens of the eye over years of elevated blood sugar. Glycation means that sugar molecules attach to proteins in the lens, causing them to cloud and stiffen. This is one of the primary drivers of cataract formation. And it progresses at a rate that is directly influenced by what you eat, not just in terms of sugar, but in terms of the protective compounds that slow the glycation process. One unaddressed source of oxidative stress leads to accumulated retinal damage. Reduced blood flow means fewer protective nutrients reaching the eye. Glycation clouds the lens, and a person who is reading fine at 65 finds by 72 that something has quietly shifted. Keep that framework in mind as we go through each fruit today. I want to ask you something. Think back 5 or 10 years. Do you remember when reading the menu at a restaurant was effortless? When you could read the text on your phone without adjusting the distance? When driving at night didn't require an extra moment of adjustment before things came into focus? Most people I talk to describe a gradual shift, not a sudden loss, just a slow, quiet narrowing. Things that used to be easy require a little more effort. Text that used to be clear needs better light now. Faces across a room are less distinct than they were. That shift feels like aging, and in some ways it is, but in a very meaningful way it is also a response to years of nutritional inputs, and nutritional inputs are something that can be changed. If any of that sounds familiar, this conversation is for you. Here is what I need you to hold on to before we go through the list. The research on nutrition and eye health is not fringe. It is mainstream, peer-reviewed, and increasingly precise. We know which specific compounds protect which specific structures in the eye. We know how much of them is needed, and we know which foods deliver them most efficiently. The gap is not in the science. The gap is in people knowing what the science says and acting on it. That is what today is about. Not fear. Practical knowledge you can apply starting tonight. Before we go deeper, my free longevity guide, which covers nutritional strategies for healthy aging across every major body system, is linked in the description below. Thousands of people in this community use it. Grab it now and follow along. Let me explain what is actually happening inside the aging eye at a biological level, because the mechanism makes the fruit choices feel logical rather than arbitrary. Picture the retina as a camera sensor, extraordinarily sensitive, extraordinarily active. It is converting light into electrical signals every moment you are awake, and it is doing this through a process that generates oxidative byproducts as a side effect. Think of it like a high-performance engine that produces exhaust. The eye needs constant antioxidant support to neutralize that exhaust before it damages the sensitive tissue around it. Two compounds sit directly in the macula, the bullseye of your retina, acting as a natural filter. They are called lutein and zeaxanthin. You can think of them as the eye's built-in sunglasses. They absorb damaging blue light before it reaches the photoreceptors beneath them, and they neutralize oxidative stress in the process. The concentration of lutein and zeaxanthin in the macula is the single strongest predictor of macular pigment density, which is the measure researchers use to assess a person's biological protection against age-related macular degeneration. The problem is that the body cannot make lutein or zeaxanthin. They must come entirely from food, and the typical Western diet is significantly deficient in both. Meanwhile, the lens of the eye is being acted on by a separate but equally important process. Vitamin C concentration in the lens fluid is the highest of any tissue in the body, because vitamin C is the primary antioxidant protecting the lens proteins from oxidation and glycation. As dietary vitamin C declines with age, which it tends to, as absorption becomes less efficient and intake often decreases, lens protection decreases with it. Now add to this the anthocyanins, the dark pigments in blue, purple, and red fruits, which research shows specifically support retinal blood flow and protect the photoreceptor cells that detect light. And lycopene, found in certain red and orange fruits, which has documented protective effects against oxidative damage in the lens. Every fruit on today's list is delivering one or more of these compounds to a tissue that urgently needs them. A major study, the Age-Related Eye Disease Study 2, known as AREDS2, conducted by the National Eye Institute and involving over 4,000 participants, found that specific antioxidant combination, including lutein and zeaxanthin, reduced the progression of intermediate age-related macular degeneration to advanced stages by 25% over 5 years. That is not a minor effect. That is a meaningful reduction in one of the leading causes of irreversible vision loss in adults over 60, and that finding was from supplementation. The dietary versions of these compounds delivered through whole foods with their full complement of cofactors operate through the same mechanisms. I have ordered these 7 fruits from supportive to most protective so you understand which ones deserve the most consistent place in your diet. And the 7th, as I mentioned, will genuinely surprise you. Fruit 1, kiwi. Sandra was 67. She had been noticing increasing difficulty with contrast, distinguishing objects from their backgrounds in lower light. Her ophthalmologist mentioned early signs of reduced macular pigment density. She had never thought about nutrition as relevant to her eye health. Most people think of kiwi as a vitamin C fruit. That's accurate, but it significantly undersells what kiwi does for the eye specifically. A single medium kiwi contains approximately 64 milligrams of vitamin C, more per calorie than almost any other common fruit, But kiwi is also one of the best dietary sources of lutein and zeaxanthin among fruits. Unlike leafy greens, which deliver more total lutein but require fat for absorption and are often eaten in smaller quantities, kiwi delivers its lutein alongside natural fruit sugars that facilitate absorption, and most people find it far more consistently easy to eat. A study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed adults who added 2 kiwi fruits per day to their diet for 8 weeks and found significant increases in blood plasma, lutein and zeaxanthin levels, the direct measure of how much is actually reaching the tissues that need it. The practical guidance is this: 2 kiwi fruits in the evening, either eaten whole or sliced and added to yogurt, provides a meaningful lutein, zeaxanthin, and vitamin C dose that supports macular pigment and lens protection. Eating them with a small amount of fat, a few nuts, some full-fat yogurt, enhances the absorption of the fat-soluble carotenoids. The common mistake is eating kiwi occasionally as a dessert fruit and not consistently enough for the compounds to accumulate. Lutein and zeaxanthin are not water-soluble. They build up in the macula over weeks and months of regular intake. Occasional consumption provides limited protective benefit. Consistent daily intake is what builds the tissue concentration that matters. What most people notice within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent kiwi consumption is improved visual contrast, particularly in lower light conditions as macular pigment concentration increases. Within a month, many people report that their eyes feel less strained after extended screen use. These are not dramatic changes. They are the kind of quiet, steady improvements that come from giving a tissue what it needs. The next fruit operates through a completely different mechanism, and it's one that almost no one associates with eye health. Fruit 2, watermelon. Most people think watermelon is mostly water and sugar. That characterization misses the most important thing about it. Watermelon is the richest whole food source of lycopene available in the average diet, containing more bioavailable lycopene per serving than raw tomatoes, because the lycopene in watermelon exists in a form the body absorbs more efficiently. Lycopene is a carotenoid, a member of the same antioxidant family as lutein, but its primary protective role in the eye is in the lens rather than the macula. The lens of the eye is particularly vulnerable to oxidative damage because, unlike most tissues, lens cells are never replaced. The cells you are born with in the core of your lens stay with you for life. This means that oxidative damage to lens proteins accumulates over decades without any natural turnover to clear it. Lycopene is one of the primary antioxidants that neutralizes the reactive oxygen species responsible for that protein oxidation, which is what drives cataract formation. Research published in Nutrition and Cancer found that higher dietary lycopene intake was associated with a significantly reduced risk of nuclear cataract, the most common type of age-related cataract, with individuals in the highest lycopene intake group showing approximately 40% lower risk compared to those with the lowest intake. The practical guidance: 2 cups of fresh watermelon in the evening provides approximately 9 to 13 milligrams of lycopene, within the range associated with protective effects in the literature. Like kiwi, eating watermelon alongside a small fat source enhances lycopene absorption, since lycopene is fat-soluble. A few almonds alongside a bowl of watermelon is a simple and effective combination. The common mistake is treating watermelon as a summer seasonal food and consuming it only occasionally during warm months. If lycopene is protective against lens protein oxidation, a process that happens every day year-round, then seasonal consumption provides seasonal protection at best. If you have access to it year-round, use it year-round. If not, consider that other lycopene-rich foods, including cooked tomatoes, provide similar benefits through the same mechanism. If you are managing blood sugar, watermelon is a moderate glycemic index food and is fine in the portions described here for most people. If you have diabetes or are monitoring blood sugar closely, please discuss dietary changes with your physician. This is not medical advice and your specific situation matters. Quick pause here. Has your eye doctor ever talked to you specifically about nutrition and its role in protecting your vision? Drop a yes or no in the comments. In my experience, this conversation almost never happens in a standard ophthalmology appointment, and the people in this community consistently tell me it changed how they thought about their eye health when they first heard it. Fruit 3, black currants. Black currants are not a common grocery store item in much of the United States, and that is a significant nutritional gap for eye health specifically. Black currants contain the highest concentration of anthocyanins of any commonly studied fruit, approximately 190 to 270 milligrams of anthocyanins per 100 grams, which is 2 to 3 times the concentration in blueberries. Anthocyanins are the dark pigments that give blue, purple, and red fruits their color, and in the eye, they serve a very specific function. The retina contains 2 types of photoreceptors: cones, which detect color and detail in bright light, and rods, which detect motion and low light vision. Rod function depends on a compound called rhodopsin, commonly known as visual purple, which is a light-sensitive protein that gets bleached by light exposure and must be continuously regenerated for vision to work in low-light conditions. Anthocyanins, particularly the delphinidin and cyanidin compounds abundant in black currants, have been shown in multiple studies to accelerate the regeneration of rhodopsin, meaning they support the eye's ability to recover after light exposure and function in lower light conditions. Research from Hokkaido University in Japan, published in the Journal of Ocular Pharmacology and Therapeutics, followed subjects who took blackcurrant anthocyanin extract and found statistically significant improvements in dark adaptation, the eye's ability to adjust to lower light compared to placebo. What that means for you is clearer vision in dim conditions and less difficulty adjusting when moving from bright to darker environments, such as entering a room or transitioning from outdoors to indoors. The practical guidance, blackcurrant juice, unsweetened, available at specialty and health food stores, provides a concentrated anthocyanin dose in a small volume. 2 to 3 tablespoons of pure blackcurrant juice diluted in water in the evening is a practical approach. Frozen blackcurrants, which are more widely available than fresh, can also be blended into smoothies or stirred into yogurt. If blackcurrants are not accessible, concentrated blackcurrant supplements standardized for anthocyanin content are available, but please discuss supplement use with your physician if you are on blood thinners, as anthocyanins have mild antiplatelet properties. The common mistake is substituting regular blueberries and assuming the effect is equivalent. Blueberries are genuinely beneficial, and we'll cover them next, but blackcurrant anthocyanin concentration is categorically higher. If you have access to both are worth including. Fruit 4. Wild blueberries. Wild blueberries are not simply smaller blueberries. They are a distinct variety with approximately twice the anthocyanin concentration of cultivated blueberries, because they grow in harsher conditions and produce more protective pigment as a response to environmental stress. Caroline was 71. She had been experiencing increasing difficulty reading in the evenings, not blurry vision exactly, but a fatigue in her eyes by the end of the day that made prolonged reading uncomfortable. She had simply accepted it as normal aging. Most people think of blueberries primarily as a brain food. The anthocyanin research in cognitive function is well established. What is less commonly known is that the same anthocyanin mechanisms that protect neurons in the brain also protect photoreceptor neurons in the retina. The mechanism here is dual. First, anthocyanins cross the blood-retinal barrier, the protective filter that controls what enters retinal tissue, and directly reduce oxidative stress in the photoreceptors. Second, they support the integrity of the small capillaries that supply blood to the retina. Retinal capillaries are among the smallest blood vessels in the body, and they are highly susceptible to the same processes that cause cardiovascular disease. Anthocyanins have documented effects on capillary integrity and blood flow, meaning they help ensure that the nutrients the retina needs are actually being delivered. A review published in Nutrients examined multiple clinical trials on berry anthocyanins and visual function and found consistent evidence of improvement in visual fatigue, the feeling that the eyes are strained and tired after sustained use, as well as modest improvements in contrast sensitivity. The effect sizes were not dramatic in any single study, but they were consistent across multiple populations and designs. The practical guidance: 1 cup of wild blueberries in the evening, fresh, frozen, or dried without added sugar, provides a meaningful anthocyanin dose. Wild blueberries are widely available frozen year-round, which is significant because freezing does not meaningfully degrade anthocyanin content. Thawed and stirred into yogurt or eaten alone, they are one of the most practical eye health foods on this list. The common mistake is buying cultivated blueberries and assuming the same effect. If you can find wild blueberries, often labeled as such in the frozen section, they are preferable specifically for eye health applications. The difference in anthocyanin content is not marginal. Now I want to shift focus. The next three fruits are the ones where the nutritional science is most directly connected to the specific eye conditions that cause the most significant vision loss after 65. Pay close attention here. Fruit 5, red dragon fruit. Red dragon fruit is underused, underappreciated, and worth seeking out, specifically for what it contains that almost no other commonly available fruit provides in comparable amounts. The red-fleshed variety of dragon fruit is one of the few fruits with meaningful beta-cryptoxanthin content, the pigment responsible for its deep red color, which functions as an antioxidant with specific documented effects on reducing glycation end products in ocular tissue. This matters enormously for cataract prevention for reasons I explained in the mechanism section. Glycation of lens proteins is one of the primary drivers of lens clouding over time, and it is directly influenced by dietary compounds. Red dragon fruit also contains a notable concentration of vitamin C, approximately 20 to 25 milligrams per 100 grams, along with vitamin E and zinc. Zinc deserves specific mention here because it is an essential cofactor for the transport of vitamin A from the liver to the retina, where vitamin A is converted into the visual pigments that make sight possible. Zinc deficiency, which becomes more common with age as absorption efficiency declines, is directly associated with reduced night vision and accelerated retinal degeneration. Multiple randomized trials consistently show that the combination of antioxidants found in red pigmented fruits, including vitamin C and E alongside carotenoids and zinc, provides additive protection against oxidative damage in ocular tissue beyond what any single compound achieves alone. The practical guidance: half a medium red dragon fruit in the evening, eaten fresh, provides a meaningful combination of beta-cyanins, vitamin C, vitamin E, and zinc in a form that the body absorbs well. Dragon fruit is increasingly available in major grocery chains, particularly in areas with larger Asian or Latin American populations. If fresh is not accessible, frozen is an acceptable substitute. The common mistake is purchasing the white-fleshed variety of dragon fruit, which is more commonly available but contains significantly lower beta-cyanin concentration. Look specifically for red-fleshed dragon fruit, sometimes labeled as pitaya rojo, for the protective compounds that make this fruit stand out. Fruit 6, goji berries. Goji berries have been used in traditional Chinese medicine for eye health for centuries, and the modern research on them is unusually strong for a food that is sometimes dismissed as a health trend. The primary active compound in goji berries relevant to eye health is zeaxanthin, the same macular pigment compound present in kiwi and leafy greens. But goji berries are, gram for gram, one of the highest dietary sources of zeaxanthin available. A 28-gram serving of dried goji berries contains approximately 3 milligrams of zeaxanthin, a concentration that rivals or exceeds most other foods. Beyond zeaxanthin, goji berries contain a unique polysaccharide complex, Lycium barbarum polysaccharides, named for the plant's botanical name that has been the subject of specific research in age-related eye conditions. Studies conducted at the University of Sydney and published in the journal Optometry and Vision Science found that daily consumption of goji berry was associated with increased macular pigment optical density. The direct measure of lutein and zeaxanthin concentration in the macula and a reduction in soft drusen, which are small deposits beneath the retina that are associated with increased risk of advanced macular degeneration. What that means for you, consistent goji berry consumption is one of the few dietary interventions with direct clinical evidence of improving the specific biological markers associated with macular degeneration risk, not just providing nutrients that theoretically should help, but actually measurably improving the tissue conditions that matter. The practical guidance: a small handful of dried goji berries, approximately 15 to 20 grams in the evening, provides a meaningful zeaxanthin dose. They can be eaten alone, added to a small dish of mixed nuts, or stirred into herbal tea to rehydrate slightly before consuming. Purchase unsweetened, sulfite-free dried goji berries for the cleanest nutritional profile. The common mistake is inconsistency. Because dried goji berries are easy to eat in very small amounts and easy to forget to buy, many people who start including them drop off within a few weeks. A practical solution is to keep them in a small jar next to wherever you sit in the evening, visible, accessible, and requiring no preparation. If you are taking blood thinners such as warfarin, please speak with your physician before adding goji berries regularly to your diet. There is evidence that goji berries may interact with warfarin metabolism, and this is a conversation worth having before increasing your intake. Now here it is, the seventh fruit, the one that changes the conversation entirely, and the one that in 21 years I have found to be the most consistently underestimated food in the context of age-related eye health. Fruit 7, papaya. Most people know papaya as a tropical fruit with digestive benefits. They have no idea what it does for the aging eye specifically, and the data, when you see it clearly, is remarkable. Papaya is one of the very few fruits that delivers 3 critical eye protective compounds in significant quantities simultaneously: beta-cryptoxanthin, zeaxanthin, and vitamin C. Beta-cryptoxanthin is a carotenoid that the body converts to vitamin A, and vitamin A is not optional for retinal function. It is the direct precursor to retinal, the compound that sits in your rod photoreceptors and makes vision in low light conditions possible. Without adequate vitamin A supply to the retina, rod photoreceptors cannot regenerate their visual pigment efficiently. Night vision deteriorates, low light adaptation worsens. The World Health Organization identifies vitamin A deficiency as the leading cause of preventable blindness globally. And while severe deficiency is rare in developed countries, subclinical vitamin A inadequacy in older adults is considerably more common than most people realize, particularly in those with reduced dietary fat absorption, which affects retinol absorption directly. A large-scale epidemiological analysis published in Investigative Ophthalmology and Visual Science, drawing on data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, found that higher dietary intakes of beta-cryptoxanthin were associated with significantly reduced odds of age-related macular degeneration, with the association remaining significant after controlling for other dietary variables. And here is why most people miss papaya's protective potential. They confuse it with other orange fruits. Oranges and mangoes have some overlapping nutrition, but their beta-cryptoxanthin content is substantially lower than papaya's. A single cup of papaya provides approximately 820 micrograms of beta-cryptoxanthin, one of the highest concentrations of this specific carotenoid in any food. What to do? Eat half a medium papaya in the evening, 2 to 3 times per week, alongside a small amount of fat for optimal carotenoid absorption. The riper the papaya, the higher the carotenoid concentration. A fully ripe papaya with deep orange flesh delivers significantly more beta-cryptoxanthin than an underripe one. If papaya is not consistently available fresh in your area, frozen papaya chunks are a practical alternative that retains most of the carotenoid content. The common mistake, and it is the one that keeps this fruit underutilized, is treating it as a dessert fruit reserved for special occasions or tropical vacation contexts. For eye health specifically, papaya eaten consistently 2 to 3 evenings per week delivers a beta-cryptoxanthin dose that has measurable protective associations in large-scale population data. Occasional consumption does not accumulate the same way. Before your 30-day challenge, I want to give you a tool for your next eye appointment. I call it the Ocular Nutrition Clarity Protocol. 5 questions worth bringing to your ophthalmologist or optometrist. Question 1, based on my current macular pigment density or any early signs of retinal changes, is my diet likely to be a relevant factor in my eye health trajectory? Question 2, would you recommend I have my vitamin A and zinc levels checked, given that both are essential for retinal function and both tend to decline with age? Question 3, are there any specific carotenoids, lutein, zeaxanthin, or beta-cryptoxanthin, at levels my current diet is unlikely to be providing adequately? Question 4. Given what you see in my eye health currently, is there any component of the REDS2 nutritional protocol that would be relevant for me to discuss? Question 5. Are there any medications I'm currently taking that affect the absorption or metabolism of fat-soluble vitamins that protect the eye? Any ophthalmologist who is engaged with the research will welcome these questions. And if the response is that diet has no bearing on eye health, The AREDS 2 trial data alone is enough to revisit that conversation. Here is your 30-day challenge. It is specific and it is trackable. Choose 2 fruits from today's list that you do not currently eat regularly. Write them down. Starting tomorrow, include at least one of them every evening for 30 days. That's the anchor habit. 1 fruit consistently every evening. Write down 2 baseline observations today. First, on a scale of 1 to 10, how easily can you read standard-sized text in ordinary room light right now? Second, how comfortable are your eyes after a full evening of reading or screen use? At 30 days, assess both again. The changes in how your eyes feel after sustained use are often the first detectable signal that macular pigment and antioxidant levels are improving. They are not dramatic, but they are real, and they compound over months. You do not need to add all 7 fruits. You need to add 2 consistently for 30 days. That is an achievable commitment with a measurable outcome. And the habit of eating for your eyes, once it's established, tends to become self-reinforcing because people notice the difference. There's a difference between healthcare that waits for a problem to become serious and healthcare that gives the body what it needs to resist that problem in the first place. After 60, that distinction matters enormously for the eyes because the most common forms of age-related vision loss are, by the time they become clinically significant, already years in the making. The best ophthalmologists I have encountered over 21 years consistently express frustration at the same pattern. Patients who could have done more earlier with simpler interventions and didn't because nobody told them clearly enough that nutrition was relevant to what was happening in their eyes. It is relevant. The research is clear. The compounds are identified. The foods that deliver them are real, accessible, and affordable. You are not powerless in front of age-related vision changes. You have 7 specific foods, the mechanisms that explain why they work, and the questions to bring to your next eye appointment. That is a meaningful toolkit, and the time to start using it is not when things have gotten worse. It is now, while there is still the most to protect. In 21 years, the patients I have watched maintain the sharpest vision into their late 70s and 80s are almost never the ones who waited. They are the ones who understood early enough that what they ate was talking to their eyes every day and chose to make that conversation a protective one. If this gave you something useful, subscribe. This is what this channel is for. Calm, practical, science-based guidance for adults who want to understand how to protect their health, not just manage its decline. The longevity guide is linked in the description below. It covers everything we discuss on this channel in one structured place. Download it. Share this video with someone whose eyesight matters to you, and I'll see you in the next one.